Have you ever heard a clock strike 13? In the town of Brackenridge, they have, but no one ever talks about it. Brackenridge had a peculiar clock tower. It wasn't broken, not exactly. It was just wrong. Every hour, it chimed like any normal clock. But once a month, on the night of the full moon, it struck 13 times. The townsfolk would pretend not to hear it, but they all knew what happened next. Eliza Moore, a historian cataloging landmarks, arrived in Brackenridge with the clock tower as her final project. It stood as a towering relic of stone and iron, its face yellowed and weathered by time. The town's caretaker, a man with eyes as old as the tower itself, gave her a stark warning. "You need to be gone before midnight," he said, his voice low and serious. Eliza just offered a polite, dismissive smile. "It's only a clock," she replied. The caretaker's face darkened. "No, it's a door." Eliza laughed it off, thinking it was just local folklore. That night, she was determined to finish her work. At 11:55 p.m., she stood alone inside the tower, her pen scratching against paper as she recorded her notes. Moonlight streamed through the narrow windows, casting long, eerie shadows. The massive pendulum swayed back and forth, its rhythm a steady, hypnotic tick-tock-tick. Then, midnight arrived. The great bell began to ring. Once, twice. Eliza counted along, her academic curiosity piqued. 3, 4. By the time the 10th chime echoed through the stone chamber, an unexplainable sense of unease settled over her. 11:12. A moment of silence hung in the air, heavy and expectant. Then, a 13th chime. It was different from the others. Deeper, louder. It wasn't just a sound she heard. It was a vibration that resonated deep within her bones, making her teeth ache. And then, everything stopped. The pendulum froze mid-swing. The air grew completely still, thick and suffocating. Eliza held her breath. Slowly, unnaturally, the hands on the giant clock face began to turn backward. A faint sound drifted up from below. Footsteps echoing on the spiral staircase. Eliza's heart hammered against her ribs. "Hello?" She called out, her voice trembling slightly. "Is someone there?" There was no reply. Only the sound of the footsteps growing closer. They were slow, dragging, uneven. A shiver traced its way down her spine. She wasn't alone. From the deep shadows of the staircase, a figure emerged. It was a woman dressed in a long, old-fashioned gown. Her face was as pale as marble, her eyes dark and hollow. She looked straight through Eliza, her gaze fixed on something far away. "I'm late," she whispered, her voice like the rustling of dry leaves. Before Eliza could react, more figures appeared, materializing from the gloom. A man in a tailored suit, clutching a silver pocket watch that had long since stopped. A small child, holding a broken wooden toy soldier. An elderly couple, their hands still intertwined, even in this spectral form. They all gathered, their eyes staring up at the backward-turning clock, a silent, ghostly congregation. "It's almost time," they murmured, their voices blending into a single, chilling whisper. Eliza stumbled back, pressing herself against the cold stone wall. "What time?" she managed to ask, her voice barely a squeak. The woman in the old dress turned her head slowly, a faint, sad smile touching her lips. "The time we never left." Suddenly, the caretaker's voice echoed through the chamber, seemingly coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "This tower marks the moment," he said, his tone filled with a profound sorrow. The moment people tried to undo. A wave of horrifying realization washed over Eliza. She finally understood. This clock didn't just measure time. It corrected it. Each 13th chime was a summons, pulling back those who lingered between moment souls who had died with a desperate wish for just one more second, one more chance. They were trapped here, caught in a loop of their final regrets. But the tower was a place of balance, It always demanded a price. As this thought crossed her mind, the clock hands froze, pointing directly at her. The spectral figures turned their gaze from the clock face to her. They stepped closer, their forms flickering like dying candle flames, half transparent, half solid. "You're early," they whispered in unison, their voices a cold wind against her skin. At that moment, the thick, heavy bell rope dropped from the ceiling, landing in a coil at Eliza's feet. The caretaker appeared at the top of the stairs, his eyes filled with a deep, weary sorrow. "Someone must stay," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "Someone must always hear the chime." Panic seized Eliza. She screamed and scrambled up the winding staircase, pushing past the ghostly figures, climbing higher and higher, far beyond where she thought the stairs should end. At the very top of the tower, in the belfry, she found the final, chilling truth. Carved into the ancient stone wall above the bell were the words, "The clock never stops, only the keeper changes." And then the bell began to ring again, 13 times. The next morning, the sun rose over Brackenridge. The townspeople went about their day, passing the clock tower without a second glance. At noon, its bell rang out 12 perfect, resonant chimes. Everything was as it should be. But inside, a new figure stood beside the great pendulum. A woman, her eyes empty, her lips moving silently as she counted the passing seconds, waiting. And now, once a month, when the moon is full and the air is still, if you listen very, very closely, you might just hear it. A 13th chime echoing softly in the night. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to follow our channel for more tales from the shadows. We'll see you next time.